So, with the word euro now almost always followed by the word crisis, where does all this leave the European project? Well, we're joined by former Minister for Europe Denis MacShane and UKIP leader and MEP Nigel Farage. Welcome to both of you. Can I start with you, Denis MacShane? I mean, is this gathering now, after 2 years of saying we're at a critical point, is this the critical moment where the two options of Greece going or Germany doing something fairly dramatic to prevent that happens?
I'm going to give you a European answer, yes and no. We've had so many critical junctures. I mean, I travel a lot in Europe, that's not exactly a secret. And people just look at Britain and they'll read today's Financial Times, Martin Wolf saying we're in the worst slump since the 19th century, that we've cut investment. My firms in Rotherham are ready to go. They're ready to build houses, to provide catering services. All they want is a nod from the government. So what the rest of Europe is doing and saying to Britain is, will you help increase demand? Because we can't get ourselves out of our crisis if Britain remains locked in stagnation, slump and recession.
The critical issue now, I mean, that, arguably is not going to help Greece at this particular point, and it is that point which the rest of Europe is looking. Do you think today's meeting will be, to use David Cameron's words, a make or break?
No, because I think President Obama is going to put his ideas and knock a few heads together, and the two heads he has to knock together are our view, which is that of Angela Merkel's, that government shouldn't spend any money, and if we all go bust, then we'll re-emerge healthier. Greece is 2% of the Eurozone economy. All the money that's gone to Greece so far, bar 6 billion, has been immediately recycled back to banks in Europe, including some in London, which rather than spending on improving the Greek economy. The Greek primary deficit, just a tiny final techie point, is 1%. Ours is 8%. So actually, Greece has got a lot of pain to go through, but the notion Greece will bring down the whole of Europe is actually fantasy.
Do you think this is a critical moment?
Yes, I sense we may well have passed the point of no return, though. I think the run on the banks that we've seen, the rich people got their money out of Greece last year. The middle classes are now desperate to get their money out.
I mean, there aren't sort of queues Northern Rock style, though, are there? People going around the corner.
If you look at take Spain, for example. There's been €1 billion taken out of current accounts in Spain this week alone.
Not true.
So I think we've got a bank run going on.
No, it's
and I think we've also got a recognition amongst the electorate. The north of Europe is not prepared to pay continually to bail out the south.
Right, OK.
And the south is starting to vote differently as well.
So you think this is the point at which everyone accepts that Greece goes?
I think Greece will go fairly quickly now, yes.
All right, let's just then say it's not a remote issue for Britain, is it?
No.
I mean, if Greece goes, which I presume you're in favour of,
well,
of going, then the risk of contagion, $1 trillion, the cost of a potential breakup, is also huge.
Yeah, I mean, the real problem is Spain. Because if Spain goes after Greece with the domino effect...
But with your policy of saying that Greece should go, that is more likely, isn't it?
Well, look, if these countries are kept trapped inside the Eurozone, it could lead to revolution, it could lead to violence, it could lead to all sorts of awful things. So the best thing is to take the medicine to help these countries get out of the euro and get their own currencies back. It won't be easy, but it's much better than just staying as we are with something that is failing.
But what that amounts to then is saying to every Greek, rush down to your banks today if they follow Nigel's advice. And that would mean quite soon you'd have to put armed guards outside banks because all the euros will be under people's beds. That means the government, nobody's any money to pay anything.
Anyway,
no, I'm sorry, forgive me, it hasn't. It's not happening in Spain. It's a lie officially denied.
Cash deposits fell 20% last year in Greece, and they've fallen again this year.
And what it then means is the people of Greece with no hope, unable to pay the police, the army, God knows what might happen, no hope, will flood north like we saw during the Yugoslav crisis, when our government 20 years ago said it was somebody else's problem to solve. We are in this together. If we want 1 million or 2 million Greeks flooding into the UK and the rest of North Europe, go down your road. And Spain, with 800,000 Brits living there...
Let Nigel Farage defend. I mean, if that is a fairly apocalyptic scenario, but it's not beyond the realms of possibility.
Inside the Eurozone, the Greek economy has contracted by 20% over the last 4 years. It is due to fall a further 6 to 7% this year. Youth unemployment is 54%. We've even got neo-Nazi parties winning seats in the Greek parliament. The situation there is desperate. The only hope they've got...
But is the drachma the answer?
The only hope they've got is a competitive devaluation, to have a rebirth in their tourism industry, to give their exports some sort of chance.
Let me just bring Steve Richards in. I mean, look, listening to those two scenarios, they are the same scenarios that have been on the table for really a very long time. Is there at this point any notion, do you think, that Germany is going to finally say, Are we at that point where Angela Merkel is looking into the precipice and saying, OK, we are going to persuade the European Central Bank to step in, we are going to prevent Greece leaving the euro to save the currency? Or is it that they are working on Greece leaving and then they'll try and save the rest?
Well, we might have a clearer idea after this weekend, where clearly she's going to come under a huge amount of pressure. There are about 25 different elements to this story.
Yes.
That's what's new at the moment. And we know the answer to some of them. The Spanish bank situation is frightening, but we know what we need to do because we experienced that ourselves, and so did the United States in 2008. You need to throw money at these banks.
But the firewall isn't that strong. I mean, there's not really...
It needs to be stronger.
Right.
It needs to be
the
much
firewall
stronger.
is not a prop. Believe me, in Spain, and I've been talking a lot to Madrid this morning to find out myself, that is, they are now officially denying as lies one newspaper's report about all that money leaving. There aren't queues outside banks to take their money out. But Spanish banks, not some of the saving banks, are solvent. Spanish total debt and deficit is manageable. So the Spanish state, we've got a prime minister who can't communicate very well. He's not like Mr. Monti in Italy.
Right. Yeah.
So, but they
that's
are...
one side. Well, I agree with you, Dennis,
Yes.
on the British element. It's very difficult, I think, for David Cameron and George Osborne to lecture the other countries when Britain itself is part of the problem with the economic policy it is pursuing at the moment. In terms of Greece and whether it will leave the euro, I haven't a clue, frankly.
Right, OK.
We've been here about 25
And you're not
times
the
over the last year.
And you're not the only one.
Haven't a clue.
Let's just take a little look at the European project broadly. I mean, Denis MacShane, you supported and promoted it at the time. It's now, you could say, endangering jobs and security as you have set out for millions of people. Do you accept it's failed, that project?
No, what's endangering jobs and security are bad economic policies, bad banking policies, and we've certainly got some catastrophic ones now. And I'm quoting Martin Wolf. It's not my thought. This is the most respected commentator in Europe.
The monetary union's been a success?
No, in Britain, where we're not in the monetary union, we've actually got the weakest major economy in the world.
But let's have a look at the European project and the Eurozone.
Right.
Do you say that has failed? It was flawed from the start and it's failed?
Not at all. I've just come back from Turkey, where Turkey would like to join Europe. If you go to Poland and East European countries, even Ireland, the idea they want to return to lots of nation states with capital controls and their own currencies and their own national economic policies, Nigel believes in that.
Yes,
I don't.
let me just let Nigel...
Dennis, you know, you're stuck with a big idea. You've believed in it for decades. You cannot recognise that it's gone wrong. Overwhelmingly, what people in Europe now want is a Europe in which we trade together, cooperate together, but run our own national democracies.
Yes.
And that is the positive way forward.
But when you say what's gone wrong, the argument, the other side of that argument is actually what went wrong was that there wasn't closer political and fiscal union that was going to follow on from the monetary union, which might happen now, Nigel Farage, with a smaller euro.
No, it's very unlikely to happen. You cannot build a political union without the consent of people inside that union. You know, we tried that with Yugoslavia, and look how it finished. Nobody in Europe has been asked whether they actually want most of their laws made by the European Commission. That question has never been put to people, and they would reject it all over Europe.
But Nigel Farage, Denis MacShane's point, and actually recent programmes have shown that many people in Greece and Ireland
80%.
do not want to leave the euro.
Well, of course, that's exactly as it was in Argentina 10 years ago. The day before they left the peg, two-thirds of Argentinians wanted to keep the peg. The day after they'd left the peg, two-thirds were delighted they'd left.
What I love about Nigel is when the
got.
people want something, express it clearly, and the majority of parties elected recently have actually been in favour of the European Union, they're wrong. When the opinion polls say they want to stay in the euro, they're fools.
The question, Dennis,
Only
was,
Nigel
has
is
the
right.
European project been a success, was the question, and clearly it's failing.
But is there a risk, Nigel Farage? I know you feel it won't happen, but if, let's say, Greece does go, and maybe some of the other southern European countries, I know it's speculation, and there is a smaller Eurozone, Germany at the helm, with the euro, that Britain is more isolated.
Well, I thought for a long time that when the Mediterranean countries did leave, that actually the Eurozone could work in Northern Europe, albeit German-dominated. But now what's happened, and no one's noticed this, over the last couple of years, the competitiveness gap between France and Germany is also very wide. So in the end, the whole thing's going to break up.
Is the price of keeping Greece in the euro worth it, at whatever cost?
Well, that's for the Greek people to decide.
From our perspective, is it worth it?
That's for the Greek people to decide. They've got another election, like we had 2 elections in 1974. Sometimes people need more than one election to get where they think they should be going. A big debate's taking place in Europe. On balance, I think the idea of reintroducing capital controls in countries, of bringing back the drachma, the lira, the peseta, will cause havoc for the 800,000 Brits living in Spain. I mean, nobody's talked about them. They'll be the first victims if Spain is then affected by the Greek problem, which almost certainly will happen. And so we either will work our way through this, we adopt new policies such as Hollande, Obama, many other people are calling for,
all right.
or we go down the road of, back into a world of balkanising all of Europe.
Right, let's go to the issues of growth, because, we've had this argument, a false argument to some extent about austerity and growth. I mean, but let's think about the G8 just briefly, bringing together David Cameron, Angela Merkel, Hollande and Obama, supposedly coming from different perspectives on things like growth. Oh, that'll be G8 on the phone saying, make sure you tell
me what's happening.
Steve Richards.
Sorry, I really can't. That's the first
You're
time
forgiven.
it's ever happened to me. There you go. The Washington hotline is contacting me now to say exactly what Merkel is going to do.
Are they really from that different perspectives? I mean, we've
yeah,
had...
They are.
They
are. And there's no question. And when David Cameron claims that Hollande is with him in terms of what needs to be done, that is certainly not what Hollande himself believes. I know that to be the case in conversations he's had with others, including with others in Britain. No, there are very different ways in which this austerity versus growth debate could go. And I think when people look back, they will recognise that in the immediate reaction in 2008 to the crisis, which is when all this began and we entered this new era, the countries broadly got it right. Obama and Brown, actually, who's not allowed to be mentioned these days, and others. He even persuaded Merkel to introduce a short-term fiscal stimulus and so on. Sarkozy in France. But what has happened since is this austerity package within Europe and indeed in Britain has actually stifled the small amount of growth that did surface after the 2008
Angela Merkel
crisis.
is not going to be persuaded, is she? Isn't that the point? I mean, she's not going to go for Eurobonds, which is David Cameron's idea. Which
No, she won't do that. She won't do that.
A lot of other ideas like investment
yeah, there are
bonds.
other ideas.
And her big worry is, one big reaction in Greece might be, all right, we won't buy Mercedes or BMWs. We'll cancel the arms deals contracts with Germany. And once that message starts to get through, because that is what happens when you balkanise national economies, they stop trading with each other. That frightens the Germans.
I'm going to have to say goodbye to you.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Adieu, auf Wiedersehen, whatever we say at this stage. Thank you very much.